So I ended up seeing a video about glowing mushrooms as a wall decoration. I thought it was really cool. But I don't want to make it for a wall decoration. I want to make one for the centerpiece of a table. So let's get creative and let's get to it. So starting out, I first ended up getting a Cat 6 wire from Home Depot. There's this white sliver inside of it which makes it really easy to strip the outer casing of the wires. And then you get something like this. A bunch of coiled up wires all together. Starting out, I went ahead and measured out as 8 inches each. 8 inches was way too short. In reality, I probably should have gone about 3 times as much in order to have a comfortable amount of space. You can uncoil the wires by hand if you want, but it'll be a lot easier if you just use a screwdriver to unwind it. It is a lot faster and a lot easier on your hand. After I had everything cut up, I went ahead and stripped the ends of the wires for each of the cords and went ahead and put a little bit of solder on the end of each one. This will help later on whenever it comes to soldering other wires together. Next up, I went ahead and took the LED strip of which I got from Walmart. It wasn't too much, about $10-15. I cut each one up into small little pieces, and I went ahead and took off the gel on top of it. It helps bending the wire strip later on. Putting a bead of solder on each of those small little joints, only on one side, you don't have to do it on both sides. This helps make the solder connection a lot easier. And the way you wire up is the brown one is for the common, the green is for the green light. Even though it says blue, don't be tricked by it. The green wire is for the green LED, the orange one is for the red LED, and the blue one is for the blue LED. I went ahead and put a bit of electrical tape on one side, and then I folded the component in half. This allows for the LED to be facing up after it's done wiring. And then make sure to test each of the wires. You can do this by making sure that the brown is connected and then add the red LED, the green LED, or the blue LED. I went ahead and used a screwdriver to recoil the wires. Don't do it too much because you can damage the wires if you do too much. Now whenever it comes to making the glowing mushrooms, just remember not all silicone is the same. After some experimenting, I ended up finding this DAP 3.0 over at Ace Hardware. I actually discovered that this silicone works really great whenever it comes to making glowing mushrooms out of silicone. Because on the instructions, it states about 30 minutes you can start messing with the silicone. To get a color, mix a small amount of paint with your silicone on a paper plate. Keep mixing in the paint into the silicone until you get a nice consistent color throughout all of the silicone. Once you have the silicone and the paint done, you'll be able to put one side of saran wrap on the table, put the silicone inside the saran wrap, and then put another layer of saran wrap on top. And then pinch the sides around the saran wrap to form the mushroom top into a circle, and then push down to get a flat surface like you'd see with this white mushroom top. Afterwards, wrap the silicone around a spherical object. This creates the mushroom top. Since I ended up using a dark color for my wires, I ended up having to actually paint the wires the same color of which the silicone was going to be, so the mushroom wires would not show through the silicone when it is on the final piece. To put the wire into the silicone, put the silicone within the saran wrap as you would with the mushroom top, and then place the wire on top of the silicone and push it slightly in. Wrap the silicone around the wire and pinch the silicone towards the fold of the saran wrap. You'll see multiple colors because I did a lot of different experimentations with the colors and found white ended up working out the best. I placed the stem onto the retainer of which I was using for the centerpiece. Once you have everything placed down, match the colors together because they'll be to the same LED light, so you'll be able to turn on all those colors at the same time for every single mushroom LED. The dirt, I went ahead and mixed this all-purpose clear glue into the mixture. The best way to work with it is to put a small amount of dirt on the bottom of a cup and then pour the amount of glue you want into the cup until it sticks on the side of the cup the way you see in this picture. I actually have to put glue onto the board where the dirt will be, and it will allow the dirt to be able to stick a whole lot better and be a lot easier for me to work with. I found this really nice stump on Amazon. It was just a fishing decoration, but it was a lot more sanitary to have a decoration from a fish tank setting than it was to go outside and actually get a stump that could possibly bring in termites or other bugs into the house. To make it look a lot nicer, I went ahead and put the dirt along the sides of it to kind of bury the roots a little bit into the dirt to make it more realistic. I then smudged the same glue dirt along the surface of the root. This allows more of a natural look to it instead of a brand new look that you would get from an item freshly bought from a store. I found these red flowers on Amazon as well. Most of the stuff which I used was from Amazon, so if you want to know what the items are, they'll be found in the description below. These red flowers I actually chose because it would match the cloth on the table of which the centerpiece would go on. I made a small bushel of these red plants to put into the hollow part of the stump. This will allow me to remove it at any point in time I need to make repairs or turn on the electronics. When you're putting on the dirt with the mushrooms already on there, there's a strong chance that you're going to get dirt onto the mushroom stems. You can actually take a little bit of alcohol and cotton swabs to be able to wipe the dirt clean from the silicone. I went ahead and put hot glue down first, and then I placed the moss down onto the hot. This would keep the moss onto the project and not fly off whenever a strong gust of wind comes by with an open door or an open window inside the house. If you plan on using the same LED strip that I ended up using, match the color system of which I have right here. Brown on the far left, green, orange, and blue. This is a proper way of setting up the wiring. This LED strip uses 12 volts electricity, but I found that a 9 volt battery works just fine as a power supply. Once you have everything wired up, make sure to test it and that all the LEDs work. You can use the remote that comes with the system and test the different colors. If some of the colors don't work, then that means that there might be a problem within the wiring that you're going to have to correct. So this right here is the first test of how it looks. As you can see, the mushroom tops are a little bit small. Doesn't really look all that great. The stems also don't look all that great. They have all this weird texture and it looks like it's pretty fake. I wanted to show an alternative mean to be able to make a nice texture for the mushrooms if it is impossible for some to get a nice, smooth, symmetric shape. So first off, I went ahead and added some tape around it. This allows a more even size throughout the entirety of the stem. This helps whenever I put heat shrink around it, that the heat shrink look straighter and not bent in angles and looking all weird. I chose this heat shrink over any other colors because this allows me to be able to match the stem with the mushroom tops. Because I added the heat shrink after I put down the moss and the dirt and everything, I ended up having to put more hot glue down and more moss to be able to hide the bottom. Ideally, you want to use a heat shrink before you actually glue the mushroom stems down. To put the mushroom tops on, I took paper clips and bent them into a circle and placed them on top of the mushroom stem as a nice placeholder for the mushroom top to set on. To keep it easier, I ended up just putting a bit of silicone on top of the cap. I know that this is different from other means of putting the mushroom tops on, but this is just the way of which I chose to do it. It was a little bit easier for me to do, and it ended up working out just fine. With that done, let's have a look at the final build. Overall, I think that the project turned out really nice. It was a lot better than what I was expecting it to be, and with all the little surprises of which I found throughout the making of the project, I really enjoyed doing this. I learned a lot from this project, and I know I made mistakes here and there throughout the entirety of the project, but that didn't stop me. If this is something that you want to do, don't let your mistakes stop you as well. Have fun while you go and learn as you go. In time, you'll become the person you want to be. With that said, I'll see you next time on A Do Theory.